Dear Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome at the 2020 Skill Summit in Slovenia, where we will discuss skill strategies for a world in recovery. It is a virtual summit, but the organizers have put in immense real effort to create an environment which would give you the possibility to take part in a successful event. That's why the Slovenian delegation has gathered in the Brdo Congress Center in central Slovenia. It consists of 3 government ministers, 1 state secretary and 1 high official of the Minister of Health, including the chairperson of the plenary session, Madam Simona Kustec, the Minister for Education, Science and Sport. Very welcome, Madam Kustec. Well, due to COVID-19 pandemic and current measures by the Slovenian health authorities, for all indoor events, we all wear face masks. The opening plenary is also an open recorded session as well as live broadcast on the Oecd TV web stream and the Slovenian press agency channel, so we welcome also all viewers who have joined us this way. The 2020 Skill Summit is organized by the Oecd and the government of the Republic of Slovenia, and I'm honored to announce the pre-recorded welcome message by the Prime Minister of the Republic of Slovenia, Mr. Janez Janša.
Dear Deputy Secretary General Knudsen, dear Vice President of the EU Commission Šinas, dear Minister Kustec, dear distinguished guests, and of course, dear online participants of the OECD Skill Summit 2020. The COVID epidemic has crystallized the benefits and traps of digital economy. Issues that we have set aside for too long have come back to haunt us. We should learn from these challenging times and act accordingly. The new post-COVID international environment calls for a paradigmatic shift in the way we think about the economy and statecraft. First point on our agenda is to facilitate economic recovery and resilience of our critical infrastructures. Skills are at the heart of long-term economic recovery and competitiveness for Slovenia, European Union and OECD countries. We are at the brink of the 4th industrial revolution, where in order to be successful, our labor force and economy need specific skills linked to digitalization and innovation. Such skills are both hard and soft. To prosper, one does not only need people with hardware and software knowledge. What is needed are skills related to artificial intelligence, robotics, and nanotechnology. In addition, one needs people with new management capabilities. They need to address the new work environment embedded in connectivity. Furthermore, human relations jobs based on communication skills, social perceptiveness, persuasion and negotiations cannot be replaced by robots. Thus, it is our responsibility to nurture both types of skills to our youth. Only so they can be successful. Only so they can tackle the challenges that lie ahead. And only so they can reach their full potential. The classroom dynamics and curricula should reflect this new environment. Several OECD studies have found that students lack mathematics skills, reading comprehension, active listening skills, writing skills, judgment and decision-making skills, system analysis and evaluation, and especially complex problem solving. We should therefore devote particular attention to them in schools in the light of generating transferable knowledge. For example, we should aim to increase active learning methods in schools. Moreover, we should consider start teaching accounting, business management and project management in elementary schools. We do not know what the future will bring. Yet, what we do know is that digitalization and artificial intelligence will be an integral part of it. Contemporary jobs in highest demand did not exist 10 years ago. Therefore, to equip individuals for their future competitiveness, we need to empower them with non-routine interdisciplinary skills. Skills that cut across a wide range of other skills. This is their compass and recipe for success. What holds for individuals holds for countries as well. Those that will be adaptive, flexible, creative, curious, and dare to venture outside the box will be poised for triumph. Skills to explore the unknown are an asset and are elementary for the forthcoming economic and political prosperity. This is the policy path I steer Slovenia towards, and we will do our utmost that also EU and the OECD countries will venture on. The EU budget and recovery plan are designed to help us in this endeavor. These are enough funds to generate the needed investments to create the economy of the future and to equip individuals with skills for that future. I wish you all productive discussions and thank you for your attention.
So that was the opening message by the Slovenian Prime Minister Janez Janša. For the next opening message, we are going live now to the OECD quarters in Paris, and I'm honored to announce the OECD Deputy Secretary General, Mr. Ulrik Knudsen. Good morning, Mr. Knudsen.
Paris, dear Prime Minister, dear Ministers, Vice Ministers, Ambassadors, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. It's a true honor to open this Skills Summit today. I want to start by paying tribute to you, Prime Minister, and to you, Madam Minister, for hosting us here at the Skills Summit 2020. I regret, of course, that me and my colleagues that we're not able to be with you physically, but I'm sure that we're going to make the most of the virtual opportunities today. I want to pay special tribute to our friends in the Western Hemisphere. I understand that we have friends and colleagues there where the time is now 3 a.m. Participating. It's a true show of passion and dedication. So thank you very much for that, and we're very sorry for that inconvenience. As I said, I'm very honored to open this session, the opening session of our summit, and to highlight some of the key issues at stake to develop skill strategies for a world in recovery. Now, the corona crisis, of course, has triggered the most severe recession in nearly a century. It's caused enormous damage to our health and to our economies. We came out with our projections only a few weeks ago, now looking at 4.5% of negative growth in 2020. And we also foresee that the level of output, even at the end of 2021, will still remain below the levels of 2019. So we are certainly in dire straits. The crisis has also severely tested, of course, countries' capacity to develop and use skills to their full potential. School closures, for example, affected around 1.6 billion learners before July, representing over 90% of total enrolled learners worldwide. In April 2020, the unemployment rate rose to 8.5% across the OECD, the highest unemployment rate in a decade. And even though we've seen a little bit of an improvement over the summer, these are still very serious figures. Learners and workers who faced before the onset of the crisis were all we need to see. The stark impact pandemic on our economies, our learning systems, and our labor markets underscores the urgent need for a comprehensive and coordinated strategy for developing and using people's skills to boost the recovery today. In the shorter term, countries should seek to keep learning institutions open for as long as is safely possible, while supporting and motivating disadvantaged learners and investing in online learning capacity. Countries should also expand upskilling and reskilling opportunities for the low-skilled, support work experience for youth, and ensure flexible working arrangements for women. Over the longer term, countries will need a skill strategy that builds resilience to future crises and allows countries to positively influence megatrends such as digitalization, globalization, and demographic change, and of course also climate change. Such skill strategies will involve reimagining how we develop and use people's skills to their potential and how we work together across traditional boundaries to realize skills visions. The importance of this approach is confirmed by the OECD's experience conducting national skill strategy projects in 17 diverse countries, and is stressed again in one of our latest reports on strengthening the governance of skill systems, made possible by the support of the European Commission. The crisis has highlighted that now, more than ever, countries must put the right foundations in place to support their responses to such challenges. One of these challenges is bringing different ministries, different levels of government, social partners, and other stakeholders to the table to co-create a skill strategy for recovery and resilience. It is for this reason that we have invited people representing all skills levels, all skills relevant portfolios to this summit. Another foundation is rethinking skills information needs and possibilities to ensure decisions are informed by comprehensive and real-time data on what is happening with skills on the ground. Finally, we need to find better ways to fully implement the comprehensive skill strategies, drawing on the resources of government, enterprises, and individuals, and targeting and monitoring spending in more systemic and sustainable ways. Dear ministers, today we would like to hear from you. We'd like to hear what your plans are or what plans you're about to dive into to respond to the challenges of today and set the course for a brighter tomorrow. We all here in Paris look forward to a fruitful discussion. It would have been great to see this table filled with you. We're only, I think, to a dozen of OECD colleagues here, but I am sure that we'll have a very, very fruitful discussion. We look forward to it, and rest assured that we at the OECD stand ready to guide us through the day together with our Slovenian host, and also in the future as we embark on building on what we are going to learn today. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Mr. Knudsen. You and your expert, as we heard, will be here with us for the entire time of the Skill Summit, and of course will also actively take part in the debate. Well, the opening part will be concluded by a pre-recorded message from the Vice President of the European Commission, Mr. Margaritis Chinas.
Dear Prime Minister, dear Deputy Secretary General, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I wish to thank the OECD for organizing today's summit on skills. The title of this conference is especially well chosen, Skills for Recovery, because the best investment in our future is an investment in people. Only 6 months ago, we were in record times of employment and increasing economic growth. The green and digital transitions were on track with very clear objectives of where we wanted to go. And then the pandemic arrived, deeply impacting the prospects of Europe and the world for the years to come. COVID-19 has also accelerated the twin transitions, in particular the digital one. Telework and distance learning have become, all of a sudden, reality for millions of workers and students. Digital has also become the only way for people to remain connected and for businesses and services to keep delivering. At the same time, skills gaps have been revealed, and the limitations of our current preparedness accentuated. For all these reasons, now more than ever before, the EU needs a paradigm shift on skills. And that is why the European Commission adopted in July a new skills agenda calling for a skills revolution in Europe. The approach builds on three main premises. First, ambition. With the skills agenda, we have set quantitative objectives, and we want to achieve them by 2025. Notably, we aim at having 120 million people participating in learning every year. This is new and will make things change on the ground. Premise number 2, inclusiveness. Whatever we do on skills must reflect our values. For Europe, that means ensuring that no one is left behind. We want to make the right to training and lifelong learning a reality for all people, in every single corner of the EU. And premise number 3, collective effort. The agenda is not about Brussels dictating what to do. It is Brussels facilitating cooperation under a new Pact for Skills that we will launch shortly on the 10th of November. It will bring those who can invest in skills, it will centralize commitments for training, and will help disseminate skills intelligence so much in need. We are already moving from words to action. Together with the skills agenda, we presented a legislative instrument to make vocational education and training more market-oriented, compatible with the other education tracks like university, and open to students from different countries. Just 1 week ago, we adopted a digital education action plan which anchors Europe on a decalogue of commandments to support the digital transition. Digital education should not be only for geeks. We presented a whole of society approach which is needed to make the digital transition a success for all. And next year, we will act to make lifelong learning a reality for people. We will adopt proposals on individual learning accounts which will allow people to up and reskill throughout their careers and introduce European standards for micro-credentials to value training experiences. We are also attaching unprecedented EU financial support to match our ambitions. With a revamped long-term budget and a dedicated recovery and resilience facility for investments and reforms, the EU is mobilizing to invest in a sustainable, inclusive and fair recovery. Investments in skills will be at the heart of these proposals. Dear friends, the cooperation on skills between the European Union and the OECD is a success story. It is an example of success. And the role of the OECD in terms of evidence, analysis, and advice is key to the development of skills policies across the European continent, a continent of great tradition of learning. Because European history is itself a remarkable story of creativity, discovery, and progress. Of course, no system can bear the test of time without renewal. And for Europe, now is the time to reconcile skill sets designed in the past with their future application. Working together with national authorities, civil society and social partners, I'm convinced that we can help bring about a skills revolution that is much in need in Europe. One that boosts our recovery in a future-proof and socially fair way. What I would like to call the European way. Thank you.
So this was the Vice President of the European Commission, Mr. Margaritis Schinas. Before we continue with the opening plenary with expert presentations, we will show you a brief summary of successful practices of promoting and enabling skills for recovery and resilience from Slovenia. So here is the video.
Slovenija je dežela pod Alpami, kjer se rojevajo mnoge nove ideje in inovacije. Ponaša se z brezplačnim javnim izobraževalnim sistemom, prav tako je brezplačen del javne službe svetovanja v izobraževanju odraslih, pa tudi številni programi za pridobivanje ključnih kompetenc, kjer sektor izobraževanja tesno sodeluje z gospodarstvom in drugimi deležniki. Zapiranje javnega življenja zaradi širjenja COVID-19 je Slovenijo postavil pred nove izzive na vseh področjih življenja in dela.
Marca se nam obrnilo izobraževanje oziroma šola na glavo. Naenkrat smo bili vsi doma in vsi delali od doma in to zdaj pomeni naenkrat skokovit porast porabe teh e-orodij, digitalnih tehnologij. Eni govorijo o internetnem cunamiju, to se vidi tudi z vseh naših slik, grafov, kako je poraba rasla. Zdaj, mi smo zaznali recimo v 2 tednih, je bilo število ogledov video posnetkov, ki jih učitelji nalagajo pogleda, je bilo iz recimo 20.000 na mesec, je bilo 20.000 na dan.
Na začetku smo se znašli pred izzivom, kako spostaviti dvosmerno komunikacijo z vsemi udeleženci, z vsemi učenci. Srečali smo se tudi s kopico ostalih izzivov, kako opismenjevati otroke nadaljavo, kako prenesti povratne informacije učencem, kako ocenjevati nadaljavo.
Malo se je pa tudi pokazalo, da ni edini ali pa celo glavni problem zagotoviti zadostno količino tehnologije. Predvsej večja potreba skoraj je bila po podpori. Tukaj se nam zdi zelo pomembno povezovati z vsemi aktorji, z učitelji na eni strani, z strokovnjaki, pedagogi, zavodom za šolstvo na drugi strani. Torej ta cel nivo podpore mora delovati, da lahko smiselno uporabimo tehnologijo.
Glavno spoznanje, s katerim se bo verjetno strinjal vsak učitelj in pedagog, je, da je za kvalitetno poučevanje šolski prostor ustreznejši in potreben, tako za učenca kot učitelja. To pa je izobraževalnega, vzgojnega in socialnega vidika. Poučevanje nadaljavo je žal pokazalo še večje razlike med učenci. Vsak je imel namreč različno podporo staršev, kot tudi materialno podporo, osnovno računalniško opremo. Torej, poučevanje v učilnice.
V Sloveniji je v sekundarno izobraževanje vključenih 97% mladine, 48% od teh pa v poklicno in strokovno srednješolsko izobraževanje. Na ravni srednješolskega in višješolskega izobraževanja delujejo centri, ki izvajajo formalno izobraževanje za mladino in odrasle ter formalno izobraževanje za odrasle. Biotehniški izobraževalni center Ljubljana, ki ga predstavljamo danes, poleg možnosti pridobivanja splošnih in poklicnih spretnosti za mladino in odrasle, zagotavlja tudi tesen stik z gospodarstvom.
Pri izobraževanju dajemo pomemben poudarek praktičnih usposobljenosti naših udeležencev, zato jim v sklopu šole zagotavljamo pridobitev teh znanj in spretnosti v realnem učnem okolju. V okviru našega šolskega centra tako deluje Center kulinarike in turizma Kult 316, ki se ponaša s šolsko restauracijo in kavarno, prvo šolsko mikropivovarno ter prvo šolsko turistično agencijo. Pri izobraževanju tesno sodelujemo z delodajalci in podjetji ter lokalnim okoljem. Zanje pripravljamo in izvajamo različne tečaje, narejene po njihovi meri.
Študenti živilstvene prehrane na Ljubljani tekom študijskega procesa opravljamo veliko prakse v šolskih laboratorijih, tehnoloških in mikrobioloških. Tam izvajamo različne analize in spoznavamo nove analize, kako se dela z živili. To znanje pa na to uporabljamo v različnih podjetjih, kjer opravljamo prakso. Sam sem prakso opravljal kar na Ljubljana, v prvi šolski mikropivovarni v Sloveniji, ki se nahaja v Centru kulinarike in turizma Kult 316 v Šentvidu. Tukaj sem spoznal celoten proces varenja piva. To znanje pa sem na to uporabil na 2 tekmovanjih, kjer smo z ekipo razvili inovativen produkt Noodles. To so testenine z dodatkom potrošenega sladu, ki nastane med samo proizvodnjo piva.
V Sloveniji so bodočim dijakom in študentom, ki vstopajo na trg dela, na voljo tudi karierni centri, ki delujejo pri slovenskih univerzah. Ti z različnimi brezplačnimi dejavnostmi in programi predstavljajo vez z delodajalci in priložnost za karierni razvoj.
Karierni center Univerze na Primorskem ponuja celostni program vodenja osebne kariere. Obenem pa seveda predstavlja pomemben del delovanja našega kariernega centra tudi povezovanje z gospodarstvom in širšim družbenim okoljem. V ta namen organiziramo različne aktivnosti, kot so obiski v delovna okolja, razne karierne tržnice, karierni dnevi. Radi poudarjamo tudi pomen štipendijskega sklada, saj omogoča našim najboljšim študentom, da se v bistvu že tekom študija povezujejo s potencialnimi bodočimi delodajalci in da hkrati tudi k njim prinašajo neka nova znanja in tako v bistvu nadgradijo delovne procese.
Vseživljenjsko učenje je danes pogoj za preživetje. Pogoj za preživetje. Pogoj, da postajaš tudi to, kar včeraj nisi bil, da se človek vse življenje lahko razvija.
So, hello again. We wanted you to feel also the sound of the Slovenian language in the video. The Slovenian language is a skill. It's an extraordinary skill itself because there are only 2.5 million people in the world able to speak it because it's very, very difficult to learn. So, a skill very important for us, for our survival. So we continue our 2020 Skill Summit opening plenary. We're still in a recorded session. In the following 30 minutes, we will hear some expert presentations regarding the skills policies for recovery today and resilience tomorrow. And I'm really happy to give the floor to the chairperson of the working part of the opening plenary, the Minister of Education, Science and Sport in the government of the Republic of Slovenia, Madam Simona Kustec.
Esteemed guests, dear OECD Deputy Secretary General, dear Vice President of the European Commission, dear ministers, dear high representatives of countries, international organizations and committees. Allow me to follow up on a journey, a virtual arrival to Slovenia by welcoming you to the Skills Summit 2020 discussion. It is my great honor to have so many of you with us today from all around the world in a very special, although not desired, but anyway innovative, and after the leading decision of COVID-19 guided virtual meeting, we are today continuing our common global dialogue on skills and a digital world, the third in a row. A record number of participating delegations at the summit indicates that we all understand education and skills as much then important for today and for the future. Hand in hand, they may prove to be vital for the recovery, for the future resilience, for a new, better and well-educated society. I wish to address my special thanks to the OECD for supporting us with their highly professional and devoted work in the past. Throughout Slovenia's Skills Strategy project and also Skills Summit preparation, they were a real upskilling opportunity in so many ways. I'm also very pleased to have with us today the European Commission, UNESCO, and the Council of Europe, sharing their commitments and acquis in the area of skills. Thank you all in the name of all the delegations that we are working with today. The Skills Summit 2020 comes at a different, difficult and unusual moment in the history of humankind and lives for all of us. Yet, it is not for the first time. It holds a special meaning for Slovenia, reminding us of the plague pandemic 470 years ago, which at the time critically enhanced the awareness about the importance of knowledge, learning and literacy.
Madam Minister, I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but we have to start again because we lost the sound. So we would like you to start again with your opening message. So can we do it now?
Yes, of course. Okay.
No, not yet, just a moment.
All right.
Okay, before we fix this problem with the sound, I would just like to present you the officials here representing the government of Slovenia. We have, of course, Madam Kustec here, who is the Minister in charge of Education, Science and Sport. We have the Minister of Public Administration, Mr. Kuritnik. Then we have, of course, a very important part of the government, Mr. Janez Stigler-Kralj, who is the Minister of Labour, Family, Social Affairs and Equal Opportunities in Slovenia. And we have Mr. Simon Zeitz, who is the State Secretary at the Ministry for Economic Development and Technology. And we have Ms. Maria Magajna representing here the Minister of Health of the Republic of Slovenia. She's a high official of this ministry. So, can we go on now with... Okay. Not yet. There is perhaps a possibility that we also have a pre-recorded message by the European Commissioner for Jobs and Social Rights. So I suggest that we go with this pre-recorded message for this part. So we have a pre-recorded message by Mr. Nikola Schmidt, the European Commissioner, as I said, for Jobs and Social Rights, and then we'll hear Madam Minister from Slovenia.
Dear Prime Minister, dear Ministers, dear Deputy Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to address today's Skills Summit. It takes place at a time of both challenges and opportunities. Reforming our skills policies is crucial for the recovery from the COVID crisis today and increased resilience tomorrow. It is also crucial in a time of huge technological transformations, green and digital. The COVID pandemic has triggered shockwaves across Europe. The social and economic risks are clear. Impacts are unequal across member states. Countries and regions relying strongly on the hardest hit sectors face the greatest difficulties to recover. In addition, the crisis is affecting hardest those workers who are already economically vulnerable. Low-wage, precarious or younger workers, and women. Still, so far in Europe, we have managed to prevent a drastic rise in unemployment, and this despite the nearly 12% drop in GDP. I believe this is because Europe acted fast. The SURE instrument is up and running. It allows the EU to lend up to 100 billion euros to member states so they can finance national short-time work schemes. Similarly, Europe made the European structural and investment funds more flexible. So also the European Social Fund supports short-time work schemes. Short-time work has been very effective in preventing job losses. It also preserves the skills we need for the recovery. Moreover, in July, we adopted an ambitious package to support the employment of young people, the so-called YES package. We want member states to use at least 22 billion euros of European funding to support youth employment. And I am happy that the central element of the YES plan, the revamped youth guarantee, has already been politically agreed by member states. This is a strong message to our next generation. We must continue to support workers and companies. This recovery is the time to turn challenges into opportunities and to emerge stronger from the crisis. We must ensure a job-rich recovery. The European Commission has proposed an ambitious recovery package to face these challenges and to meet the digital and green transitions. Next Generation EU is a game changer to build a more sustainable, resilient and fairer Europe. The new Recovery and Resilience Facility is the centerpiece of the plan. It will provide 672 billion euros in grants and loans to support investment and reforms. Crucially, skills and support to youth employment are among the 7 flagship investment areas. As we start the long path towards recovery, reskilling and upskilling will play a crucial role. The twin digital and green transitions will not work without the skilled workers to master them. That's why in July we also adopted a new European skills agenda. It will help steer future-oriented investments in people. Future-oriented because they should be in sync with the twin digital and green transitions. The skills agenda sets out ambitious actions for upskilling and reskilling. Firstly, we want to join forces by building strong partnerships to help business recover and thrive. A new pact for skills will work in particular with the sectors worst impacted. Secondly, we don't want to improve skills just for the sake of it. We need it so that people find and keep a job. It is about skills for jobs that help to reduce the mismatches on the rapidly changing labor market. Better skills forecasting will provide a clearer picture. By developing deeper skills intelligence via artificial intelligence and big data, people and companies will know which skills to invest in to enter or re-enter the labor market. Modern and excellent vocational education and training is another cornerstone. And we need national skills strategies, the aligned skills policy and spending in a whole of government effort. The OECD's work in this field has been supported by EU funding. It has allowed 11 member states to build strategies based on solid evidence and shared stakeholder commitments. I would like to extend these strategies to many more member states. Thirdly, the agenda puts forward tools to help make lifelong learning a reality. Individual learning accounts, European standards for micro-credentials, and a revamped Europass. Finally, it is also crucial that in the national recovery plans that are currently being prepared, member states use part of the funds to finance the up and reskilling needs. Dear colleagues, allow me to finish by expressing my appreciation for the work of the OECD in this field. You bring evidence and expert analysis to support policy making. Reforming our skills policies is crucial for the recovery from the COVID crisis today and to build increased resilience for tomorrow. So let's work on this together. Thank you.
So this was the European Commissioner, Mr. Nicola Schmid. Now we have found quite an unorthodox method to help us out of this sound problem. I'm giving now my microphone, which is of course disinfected due to security measures, to Madam Minister Kustec, who is chairing the opening plenary. Here's the mic. Please, it's a very useful tool. It can be dangerous sometimes, so keep it well.
Dear esteemed guests, dear OECD Deputy General, Secretary General, dear Vice President of the European Commission, dear ministers and high representatives of countries, dear international organizations and committees representatives. Allow me to follow up on a journey of virtual arrival to Slovenia by welcoming you to the Skill Summit 2020 discussion. It is my great honor to have so many of you with us today from all over the world. in a very special, although not desired, but anyway innovative, and after the leading decision of COVID-19 guided virtual meeting, we are today continuing our common global dialogue on skills and the digital world, the third in a row. A record number of participating delegations at this summit indicates that we all understand education and skills as much then important for today and for the future. Hand in hand, they may prove to be vital for the recovery, for the future resilience, for a new, better, and well-educated society. I wish to address my special thanks to the OECD for supporting us with your highly professional and devoted work in the past. Throughout Slovenia's Skill Strategy project and also Skill Summit preparation, they were all a real upskilling opportunity in so many ways for us. I'm also very pleased to have with us today the European Commission, UNESCO, and the Council of Europe sharing their commitments and the key in the area of skills. Thank you all in the name of all the participants of today's meeting. The Skills Summit 2020 comes at a difficult and unusual moment in the history of humankind and the lives of all of us. Yet, it is not for the first time. It holds a special meaning for Slovenia, reminding us of the plague pandemic 470 years ago, which at the time critically enhanced the awareness about the importance of knowledge, learning, and literacy. That time brought Slovenians its first printed textbook in Slovene language and the first folk schools. Can we learn lessons from the past for the lessons of the future? What actions, what policies, what kind of measures, what kind of cooperation and governance will enable education and skills to become recognized as a component part of the growth and sustainable response for the coming years and generations? Certainly, policies that will serve and succeed for the end users, for our children, for the employed, unemployed, for young and old, for teachers and learners in the broadest sense. We have to hear them, recognize the challenges they are facing, and praise that enthusiasm for what they do. It is our common responsibility right now to open the debate about the new vision of knowledge and skills for the future, and to safeguard the outstanding and veto point role of education for the mental and physical healthy society. We need to follow and respect the fundamental values in doing so. I'm speaking about the equality, solidarity, diversity, inclusion, social and environmental responsibility, all under the umbrella of governance concept. We need to involve all the relevant and interested stakeholders into the dialogue. Expand sectoral as well as multi-level cooperation from local through regional, national to global level. We need to become increasingly convinced of the importance to advance on our path towards implementing coordinated learning through lifelong policies. Invest all efforts to assure a comprehensive development of knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes from early childhood to silver ages. Later, we will give the floor for a short while also to the video voice that will additionally illustrate you already expressed words through stories from lives of the Slovenian education community. Slovenian experience with pandemics confirmed the importance and determination of assuring all possible conditions to maintain learning processes in schools. However, we were also obliged to suspend classes for 15 weeks. The experience from the pandemic conditions underlined the need for a stronger prioritization in certain areas. We will also speak about that in the near future. But what I want to especially emphasize is that we need to give a special attention to increasing national and international evidence on the need for holistic and best practices toward responses, including the development of skills, not forgetting those needed for social and emotional well-being. In a very strange and unexpected way, the pandemic's experience taught us a lesson that we can and need to move fast in all those areas. The crisis has made us aware also of how education and skills are truly interlaced, how synergies and cooperation between them are crucial. All of us need to identify best possible ways to balance the responses right. I sincerely believe that countries on a global scale, the Oecd and international organizations need to work on that coming challenges jointly and tightly together. And in doing so, I am convinced that the presentations and discussions that will follow open new perspectives in our responses and visions, not only at the national level, not only at the regional level, but at the global level, the level that is called the world for skills agenda, for sustainability and resilience. All my best to all of us for our common summit work today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. I have to say, really great skills when it comes to handling microphone with one hand, because it's not so easy, and a lot of professionals like me do always the same error. You know, if they would like to stress something, they wave. You did not do this. So that was really great. You learned a new skill today. Congratulations. And now to Paris. The next presentations will be presented by the OECD Director for Education and Skills, Mr. Andreas Schleicher, an institution himself in this field, of course, if I'm allowed to say, the founding father of the OECD Program for International Student Assessment, or PISA. So welcome on board, Mr. Schleicher.
I hope I can get my slides. Please.
We can see you, we can hear you, and we will also see your slides.
Thank you. These are clearly difficult times also for our global skills agenda. 1.5 billion students have been locked out of their schools. You can say, unfortunately, the clicker doesn't work. Technology today is not... You can say that children are the ones least vulnerable to the coronavirus, but no group was more affected by the public policy response.
Okay, we have a slight problem with our connection to Paris. Just to double check it, if we can restore it. Beg your pardon? Okay, it's a problem on the OECD side, so we're live with our summit. Okay, so we'll try to fix this technical problem in Paris. In the meantime, we of course have the possibility of speaking with Slovenian ministers before we reestablish the connection. I would like to give the mic to the Minister of Labour, Family, Social Affairs and Equal Opportunities of Slovenia, Mr. Ciglerkar. What are your thoughts on the current situation when it comes to jobs? And of course, How can Slovenian people learn new skills in these difficult times?
Well, good morning to everyone, dear Excellencies, dear Simona, and dear friends. Well, as we heard from distinguished speakers just before me, it's really a special time for learning. In the Ministry of Labor, we are especially giving focus to help vulnerable groups to reskill or to upskill, as Commissioner Schmidt said, to be more resilient in the future for such epidemics or other maybe new challenges that lie in front of us, to be more resilient and prepared to enter the labor market in the future. As you know, Slovenian labor market has some challenges. Let's say our workers, our older workers, don't stay long enough in work, so we give special focus on helping them to stay longer in work, and we help also the employers and workers themselves with giving them possibilities to upskill or reskill, as we heard with our friends before.
So thank you very much, Mr. Ziegler, for this intervention. It was really interesting because Slovenia is quite special in this regard, a very skilled workforce, getting older and older, which is, let's say, one of the big problems of Europe itself. But Slovenia has this problem quite extended. Now we have reestablished our connection with the OECD headquarters. So, Mr. Schleicher, are you still with us? Okay, we see your slide. Can we hear you, Mr. Schleicher?
Perfect. Finally.
Oh, yes.
Just saying, school children have been the least vulnerable to the coronavirus, but they have been the ones most affected by our public policy responses to this virus, and the learning losses that they may occur over the lifetime could be up to 3%. This also shows long shadows over our future economic development. The economic drag from learning losses could mount to $2 trillion in the UK, France, or Italy, up to 15 trillion in the US. That's over the working life of the COVID generation. Put simply, our schools today are going to be our economy tomorrow. And those of you who had, their children remote learning have seen how important technology is, but huge differences in access, use, and quality of technology have also amplified inequality in education. One of the things that we should take away from this experience is that learning is never a place, but an activity, and that education and technology must work a lot better together in the future. But, real change often happens in deep crisis, and clearly this crisis has led to amazing levels of both technological and social innovation. You can see the massive rise in online instructional resources during the crisis. Most of that was actually mediated through teachers and trainers. Technology may replace kind of the knowledge transmission, but it amplifies the role of teachers and trainers as coaches, as mentors, as facilitators, as evaluators, designers of innovative learning environments. Learning is rarely a transactional process. It's mostly relational, a social process. And that's also why so many countries have invested in capacity, mostly through online resources. Peer networks have also played a good role, but you can also see more than a quarter of teachers were left entirely on their own devices. And for many teachers, actually, online learning was a new experience too. You can see in places like, Korea or Shanghai, virtually all teachers are used to learning online. The virtual world is their learning world. But when you look at Belgium or Denmark or Japan, just 1 in teachers had participated in an online course before the crisis hit. So it's not just students. No? We've also seen that it's so much easier to close educational institutions than to reopen them. No? Obviously, reconciling health and learning is going to remain a tough balancing act. Now, that's why most countries have put extensive health measures into their reopening plans. You can see virtually all countries training teachers and staff on hygiene, putting social distancing protocols in place. Half of the countries have also closed public common spaces and so on. But in most countries, schools and universities are open progressively, variations by geography and so on. What is so interesting is just 1 in 5 cases, people look to return to business as usual. Isn't that interesting? In most countries actually plan to use the people, the technology, the spaces, the time very, very differently in the future. You can see hybrid models of learning becoming the new normal in virtually half of the countries for which we have data. But the infrastructure for online learning is still very patchy. You can see in Singapore, the coastal areas of China or Denmark, 9 out of 10 schools are equipped with an effective online learning platform. But in Germany, it's just 1/3. And even in countries where institutions are quite well equipped, like the UK, you can see the huge differences still by social background. And more importantly, just about 2/3 of school leaders see their teachers having the technical and pedagogical skills to integrate technology in instruction. Even in a high-tech country like Japan on the right side, only 1 in 10 teachers feel ready for the digital world. So upgrading capacity obviously is key. And that's why e-learning readiness is so central to strategies. And you can see virtually all countries working on that. That's the good news. And those are not just stopgap measures in a crisis, but they're really very important investments into the future of lifelong learning. But it's easier, said than done. Education is still at a very early technology adoption stage. No? Market capitalization is tiny when you compare that with the health sector. No? And we currently have less than 3% of global education expenditure going into digital innovation. True, that figure is rising, but that's mainly a story about China, actually. In 2014, over half of education venture capital was in the US in education. And last year, China's market share had risen to 56%. So there's a lot to catch up in the OECD countries. Where's the money going? Virtual reality has become big, and that's no surprise. Why should students, listen to the results of an experiment when they can do that experiment in a virtual laboratory? Spending on AI is also going very fast. And virtual reality also holds particularly great promise in vocational education and training. This is perhaps the area being hit as hardest in a kind of crisis. As people become the problems of economic processes, companies are much more reluctant to offer apprenticeships and opportunities for work-based learning, which, as you can see on the data, are so crucial for success in employment. Look here how the integration of the world of work and the world of learning offers such great advantages in terms of employment outcomes. And in fact, also many companies are using the opportunities to digitize vocational education with virtual and augmented reality experience. You can think of South Korea's smart training education platform, or Germany virtualizing work-based learning experiences, or Chile's Padlet tool to evaluate results of students' work through video recordings. There's a lot of really interesting work going on in this field. The most visible benefit is obviously greater personalization in learning. Technology gives people so much more opportunity to and ownership over when they learn, where they learn, how they learn, what they learn. Now, while you study math on a computer, the computer can actually study yourself and how you learn, what you like, what you dislike, where you're good, where you're not so good at. No? Learning analytics supported by artificial intelligence is starting to deliver amazing results in some countries already, getting educators a real sense of how different people learn differently and allowing them to support this. We're also seeing big leaps in the field of assessment and exams, whether you talk about assessments through simulations, hands-on assessments in vocational settings, machine learning algorithms, scoring, open-ended complex problem-solving tasks. A century ago, we divorced learning from exams and assessment and created huge problems with this. Now technology allows us to reunite them. I think that's an amazing opportunity which this pandemic has accelerated. And that's another area where education and labor join forces as learning becomes a more flexible, lifelong phenomenon. The certification of skills obviously becomes so important. Employers need real-time signals on worker skills. And you can see firms increasingly testing skills on their own, in using real-time signals on what people can actually do rather than just credentials of what they once learned in their lifetimes. And blockchain technology can actually facilitate this today. Who knows, one day it might break the monopoly that universities currently have on credentialing, give micro-credentials, lifelong learning and learning at the workplace a real chance. And we also should foster, international collaboration to mutualize open online education resources. So much has happened during this pandemic, but it's still often silos. So working closely together, I think, could get us a lot. And last but not least, use the momentum to reshape curricula and learning environments to what we really need in the 21st century, and count on the OECD to help with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schleicher. We will stay now in Paris, but we'll switch to another OECD veteran and top expert, Mr. Stefano Scarpetta, the OECD Director for Employment, Labor and Social Affairs. Good morning to you, Mr. Scarpetta. In Paris, are you ready for your presentation?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope you can see and hear me. Dear Minister Kustek, dear ministers, commissioners, ambassadors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is also truly a great pleasure for me to be today with you for our third Skill Summit, and actually our first virtual Skill Summit. What I'd like to do is to follow up on what Andreas Schleicher has presented and focus more on the evidence we have been collecting at OECD about the impact of the COVID-19 crisis onto the use of skills, the adaptation of skills in the context in which the labor market has been deeply affected by this crisis. Presentation doesn't move. So, Andreas has highlighted the dramatic impact of the crisis on the education system, on students, on teachers, on the system itself. It goes without saying that the impact has been also significant, dramatic and unprecedented into the labor market. One way to characterize that is to look at the evolution of the unemployment rate in the OECD countries, which is shown here. And what you can see that in a matter of 3 months, since the onset of the COVID crisis from February, basically we have wiped out all the gains, all the improvements that took 10 years to achieve after the global financial crisis. In April of this year, the unemployment rate was back to where it was in October 2009, 8.6%, 3 percentage point more than just a few months before. But of course, you see that there's been some slight improvement in the most recent months, and this is largely due to the evolution in a number of countries. In particular, you see in this chart that the unemployment rate stood up to 14.7% in the United States up to April, but then there's been a significant improvement in the next few months because of the reopening of the economy, when many of those who were on temporary layoff went back into employment. In Europe, the situation is somewhat different, as Commissioner Smith said, because actually the increase in unemployment has been more gradual and there has been no improvement in the most recent months. Indeed, one of the main drivers of the difference across country is the very large use of what the Commissioner referred to the job retention schemes. These are schemes that support companies and workers at a time in which activities were significantly reduced, if not stopped altogether. Now, again, the numbers are important here because after the global financial crisis, the use of job retention scheme was in the order of 3 to 5%. Now we have seen numbers going much, much higher than that, 10 times higher. In a country like France, the job retention scheme has been used for about for 55% of the private sector employees. In Italy, 45%, 30% in Germany. Now, if we take into account the extensive margin, those who have unfortunately lost their job, but also the intensive margin, the significant reduction in working hours, and we put them together and we look at the evolution of total hours work, then we have the situation that is shown in this chart. The little diamond in white is actually what happened after the global financial crisis. Total hours work dropped by 1.2%. During this crisis, hours work have dropped by the order of 12.5%, again, 10 times larger effect. And this has been largely driven by the job retention scheme in some countries, in other countries, actually the decline in employment. Now, crises also are associated with a significant decline in hiring, and using high-frequency data that you have in this chart, you can see the significant drop in job posting. But there is also an interesting message coming out in this chart, and this is that this has by no means has been equal across different groups and different skill groups. As you can see, in two countries, Canada and the United Kingdom, the drop in job posting has been dramatic for those with low level of education and skills, and to some extent more contained, the drop for those with higher level of education. So again, yes, the COVID crisis has affected everyone from the health point of view, but in terms of the impact on the labor market, this has been highly differentiated across countries. The other important point is that we have seen a huge use of telework and smart working, much more than what we could have possibly thought before the COVID crisis. But again, the evidence suggests that the possibility, the use of teleworking has been highly differentiated across groups. When we look at individual workers with relatively low level of education, you can see that the use has been fairly limited. But when we use those with actually high level of education, the use has been much, much larger. The estimate suggests that while 28% of workers with low skill level in literacy were able to telework, either because of the sector in which they work or because they had the access to the technology, this actually was more than 57% for those with high level of education and skills. So large divide in the possibility of using this technology because of the sector in which the workers are, but also the access to the technology. So the crisis was no doubt dramatic, but so was the policy response, as was said before in the previous interventions. And of course, the big
Okay, we're terribly sorry, but the connection with the OECD headquarters has again been cut. We'll try everything to fix that as soon as possible. But I think we would be able to see Mr. Scarpetta presentation also in the handouts later on. So we have actually arrived to our next point in our Skill Summit, which means the breakout room discussions. And before I invite the participants of the summit to take part in the discussion groups, also the Slovenian minister will take part in that, I would like to thank the audience of the OECD TV web stream and the Slovenian News Agency channel, because we will now close the open recorded session. Thank you very much. We kindly invite you back at 12:45 local time, so it means in about 2 hours and 40 minutes for the summary of the summit. So thank you, dear viewers.